Powell he's considering a pause, and he's indicating a pause because he doesn't want to overdo the damage. He doesn't want to trigger a worse recession than is necessary. So Raphael Bostic, who's the Fed bank president of Atlanta, he said this on Monday, and I quote, "Our policy works with a lag. I think I will be comfortable saying, let's just look and see how things play out." But I want you to know this. The Fed, they're now talking about a hop. So you might see that term all over the media. So let me explain this. So let's just say that they pause in June. They assess the data, and they realize that, oh shoot, like inflation is making a comeback. So in that case, they'll have to keep on raising interest rates. So in this scenario, if they pause in June and raise interest rates higher in, let's just say, July or September, so they're calling that scenario a hop. So the Fed, they can pause, pivot, or hop. And June 14th, it may not be a pause. It may be a hop. So basically a hop that's pause now and raise later. So the Fed bank president of St. Louis, that's James Bullard, he's saying hop. He's saying that we're going to hop. Bullard says that he expects 2 more interest rate increases this year because inflation is still running well above targets. So Bullard said, and I quote, "I'm thinking 2 more moves this year. Exactly where those would be this year, I don't know, but I've often advocated for sooner rather than later." So the Fed bank president of Minneapolis, Neil Kashkari, he said, and I quote, "If we were to skip in June, that does not mean that we're done with our tightening cycle. It means that we're getting more information. However, I have to tell you this. I have to remind you of this because this is so important. So what is the purpose of all of these interest rate increases? Well, the purpose is to slow down the economy so that it slows down inflation. That's the ultimate objective. But you have to remember, the banks they're playing into this because if the banks tighten their credit, so if credit slows or if credit dries up, it would result in the same outcome. It would result in a slowing economy and slower inflation. So that's what I want you to remember, that the banks, the health of the banks and credit flow, that's a very important variable. And Jerome Powell, he's taking this into consideration. He said on Friday that stress in the banking sector may slow down the economy enough where the Federal Reserve can afford to be less aggressive with their interest rate policy. So the Fed bank president of San Francisco, Mary Daly, she said, tighter credit conditions from the banks can be equivalent to approximately 1 or 2 interest rate hikes. So I want you to remember that. I want you to keep that in the back of your mind, regardless of what they decide to do at the FOMC meeting on June 14th. If they don't raise interest rates, then it may be a pause rather than a hop if credit conditions tighten. Because as Daly said, tighter credit conditions are equivalent to an interest rate increase or 2. And the Fed, they don't want to overshoot. They don't want to trigger a deeper recession than is necessary. But we'll see how credit conditions play out. Bostic, the Fed president of Atlanta, said that credit flow has not slowed down in his district. So Goolsbee, Fed president of Chicago, he said the same thing about his district. But yes, other districts are reporting slower credit flow. But this is why credit flow is so important. This is why that we're going to keep an eye on it. In terms of the Fed pivot, so this is, again, when the Federal Reserve starts cutting interest rates, the probability of that happening in September is currently around 20%. It used to be about 40% not too long ago. So this means that the market is coming to the realization that Powell is serious when he says that there will be no interest rate cuts in 2023. But the market still does not give Powell full credibility. The market still expects it to happen in 2023, this year. They've just pushed that expectation back to November. So it was in September, now it's moved to November. So as I told you before, I always thought that the market was being too aggressive and premature on Fed pivot expectations, and it's turning out to be true.